Can £40 get you a fully fledged smartwatch with fitness tracking features? Hey, Nish here, and gtide sent me the R1. This is a watch with a 1.32-inch IPS touchscreen and a couple of buttons. It has a 43 diameter watch face, which is typical for a men's watch, and is about 1 centimeter thick. The frame itself is dark grey and made of metal. Included in the box is latex straps in blue and black, and the watch boasts an IP68 rating, so it's very well protected against dust and water. It charges via a proprietary USB charger that attaches a little weakly for my liking, but will allegedly last up to 10 days on one charge. The array of sensors and things included in here are heart rate tracking, blood oxygen tracking, skin temperature tracking, and your typical step counting. It uses these various sensors to do sleep tracking, for example, with the heart rate tracking. It can track your activities. You can select between 24 different activities, and it will look at how many calories you burned and distance in the case of things that involve steps. Other features in this watch include a little weather app, a calculator, typical functions like a stopwatch and timer. There's some breathing exercises built into the menu. And as far as the connection with your phone goes, you can connect via Bluetooth, and that means you can control music on your watch, control the music that's playing on your phone, that is. And you can also receive notifications from most popular applications, think about your Instagram, WhatsApp, that kind of thing. Notable exceptions in tracking features include GPS, and there's no way to do payments or anything like that. Now, I've been using this watch for a few weeks, and I've generally had an okay experience. It's very responsive, the touchscreen is very readable, and the performance in the watch is very good. There's a few ways to navigate between the various apps, so one of them just gives you a straight up list and you can scroll through that with the wheel. There's also a copy of the famous Apple Watch, of course. I'm not a big fan of that layout because it's very hard to know what every little icon is to start with. And then there's also a sort of dial method. So generally there are quite a few ways to customize that look, but I did find that there isn't really a way to change the accessibility to certain apps and other ones, to hide certain ones that you don't use and to make it more convenient to use. So it would have been nice to see something like that. There's a lot of watch faces available in the app, although I found it was more of a case of quantity over quality. Some of them are extremely garish, although, I did eventually find a couple that I liked the look of. So at least there's more options. At least it's not too limited. As far as the rest of their app goes, it's not as polished as something like the Fitbit app, but it does have the same kinds of things being tracked. Although one exception is I couldn't find a way to export your data out. Now, as far as those tracking features, I'm not quite as impressed as I was with the Fitbit Charge 5. So firstly, with the step counting, it doesn't seem quite as responsive when you're looking at it and walking and giving you that, reassurance that it's actually measuring what's real. And then with the heart rate tracking, I did find sometimes that it was giving some strange numbers, although I did eventually sit down with both watches on my arm and basically saw that they stabilized to the same kind of level. The sleep tracking is also definitely less detailed than Fitbit. It's only recording duration, and I wore them both, for example, one night, and I did find that the Fitbit had a much better handle on when I actually went to bed and when I got up. And to be honest, there's another debate to be had whether duration alone is going to be that useful. And actually, I've got a video coming up where I'm going to talk about that. So do subscribe and stay tuned. I'm going to talk about, whether fitness trackers are even worthwhile. There is at least access to those about 24 different activities, although, like I said, without GPS, for example, you're not going to be able to measure the distance on your cycling, and only using step counting for the distance in walking and running isn't quite as effective. It does measure the heart rate over time, but it doesn't do the thing that the Fitbit does where it tells you what zones you're in and make that information easier to interpret. It's also relatively clunky accessing those previous activities on the app. In fact, it took me a good 5 minutes to even find where that was. Okay, so now that we've talked about the product in general, let's try and summarize by talking about pros and cons. And to start with the good, I am thoroughly impressed how good this is for the price, because, I wasn't really expecting much at this cost, but you've got a really good build quality. I'm happy to say the strap didn't irritate me in the same way the Fitbit did. And you've got a nice colorful screen, a responsive system. I haven't found it lagging or anything like that. So props to them for managing to do that. The battery life is also great. I like to see a week-long battery life. It's gone are the days of having like 2-day battery life on smartwatches. 10 days, I think, is a bit of a stretch. I think I found about 7 days a bit more achievable. As for the cons, I guess you'll probably see from the usage section, I find the fitness features are a little bit not so polished, especially compared to the Charge 5 I have. And I know I'm comparing the gtide R1 to a device that costs about 3 times as much, but it's really hard for me not to make that comparison because I just had it and just reviewed it. The thing I like about the Fitbit is the data is more actionable. It tries to give you insights about your sleep and statistics that you can actually take action on. Whereas here, for example, with the sleep tracking, I feel like the R1's just measuring numbers and you can't really do much with that, with the duration. It's the same thing with the activity tracking. I like the Fitbit feature with the active minutes to help you understand how hard you pushed yourself depending on where your heart rate was. Whereas here, you're just getting, you have a trace of your heart rate, but I mean, who's going to be able able to look at that and say, right, that was 80% exertion effort. So with those pros and cons in mind, who can I recommend this to? Well, I think if you're just after a basic smartwatch, you want those notification features and having a few different useful apps on your wrist, then this is a good option, but only if you're not that bothered about the fitness type stuff. If you want to do some serious fitness tracking, I think it is worth spending a bit more on getting a device that's more polished in terms of its features and its app and giving you insights and things that you can actually action on rather than just random numbers. And with that, thank you very much for watching. Thank you again to gtide for sending over the watch. Subscribe for more to the point content, and especially there's a cool video coming up where I'm going to talk about whether we even need fitness trackers. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.